Imagine for a second that you're behind the wheel of a car. You're cruising down a highway, maybe doing 60, 70 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
The radio's on, your mind is wandering a bit. Suddenly, up ahead, you see a shape, a red octagon on a post. You don't have to squint to read the white letters painted on it.
Nope.
You don't have to stop and analyze the font choice or the shade of red. You just know.
Mm-hmm.
Your foot hits the brake pedal before your conscious brain even articulates the word stop.
That's muscle memory in action.
Yeah.
But it's also a profound example of cultural programming. You're reacting to a symbol.
Exactly. Or take another one. Imagine you're cleaning out the cabinet under your sink.
Mm-hmm.
You grab an old bottle, and on the label you see a skull and crossbones.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately, your brain screams, poison. You recoil.
Hmm.
You handle it with extreme care. But then, picture that exact same image. The skull, the crossbones flapping on a black flag in a history movie.
And suddenly you aren't thinking about bleach or chemicals, you're thinking about pirates.
Right.
You're thinking about the high seas, adventure, maybe a bit of lawlessness. Mm-hmm.
Or put that same skull on a leather jacket at a concert, and it means rebel or punk rock. It's the same image, the same visual data, but three completely different physiological and emotional reactions based entirely on context.
It really highlights how we're pattern-seeking machines. We crave meaning. We don't just see objects, we read them.
Right.
Yeah.
We navigate our entire lives using this shorthand. It's a survival mechanism. If we had to consciously process every single object we encountered from scratch, what is this red light? Why is everyone stopping? We'd never make it out of the driveway.
It would be exhausting.
Less efficient.
But here's the catch. When we step out of traffic and into the pages of a story, symbols stop being these simple, functional instructions like stop or poison. They stop being efficient. They start becoming messy.
They get complicated.
And they get a little dangerous because in fiction, a symbol isn't usually telling you to do something practical. It's trying to tell you something about the human condition that you maybe don't want to hear. That's where the real magic happens. In literature, a symbol isn't just a signpost. It's a doorway. It invites you to look closer, to dig deeper, and often to find meanings that contradict each other.
So it's not about efficiency anymore. It's about depth. It represents the unsaid.
Precisely.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We're decoding the secret language of stories. We aren't just going to recap plots. Anyone can do that. We are going to uncover the hidden layers of meaning in three incredibly powerful and, frankly, deeply disturbing short stories.
We certainly have a heavy stack today. I mean, we're dealing with obsession, suppressed trauma, and the crushing weight of history. It's a lot to unpack.
Just to give everyone the roadmap, here is what we are working with. We've got Nathaniel Hawthorne's classic 19th century tale, The Birthmark.
A classic for a reason.
Then we have A.S. Byatt's haunting WWII-era ghost story, if you could even call it a ghost story, The Thing in the Forest.
That one is unsettling.
And finally, we have Edwidge Danticat's heartbreaking narrative set in Haiti, A Wall of Fire Rising.
And to guide us through this, we have a theoretical guide on symbolism and figurative language to keep us honest on the definitions, and a really sharp comparative essay that helps tie all these disparate threads together.
So, buckle up. We are going beyond the surface.
Let's dive in.
Okay, before we get to the stories themselves, I want to build our toolkit. I think most people have a vague idea of what a symbol is. It's, English 101, right?
Right.
But if I put you on the spot and asked you to define it, strictly speaking, how do we distinguish a symbol from, say, a metaphor? Because I feel like people use those words interchangeably all the time.
They do, and it drives literary critics absolutely crazy. But it is an important distinction if you really want to understand what an author is doing. Our source text on symbol and figurative language gives us a really solid baseline to work from. At its core, a symbol is an object, a person, or a place that represents more than its literal meaning.
More than its literal meaning. Okay, that's a bit broad. Can we narrow that down?
Sure. Here's the nuance. A metaphor is a comparison. If I look at you and say, your enthusiasm is a runaway train, I'm comparing your energy to a train.
Okay.
I'm not saying there's physically a train in this recording booth.
I would hope not. That would be a very different show.
Exactly. It's figurative language. It exists only in the words. But in symbolism, the object is actually there in the story. It is a real rose or a real flag or a real birthmark. It has mass. It has texture.
The characters can touch it.
They can touch it, break it, lose it. But its presence suggests something abstract like love or patriotism or mortality.
So the object has to exist physically in the world of the story to count as a symbol.
Generally, yes, that's the anchor. It bridges the gap between the physical world and the world of ideas. And the source text makes another interesting distinction between what they call arbitrary symbols and symbols that resemble what they mean.
Break that down for me. What's an arbitrary symbol?
Think about the American flag again. It consists of red, white, and blue cloth. It has stars. It has stripes. Does that cloth look like a democracy? Does it look like the concept of liberty?
No, not at all. It looks like a piece of geometric fabric.
Exactly. The connection between that cloth and the United States is arbitrary. We as a society just agreed on it. If the Founding Fathers had decided that a purple polka dot triangle represented the U.S., that would be the flag. That's an arbitrary symbol. It relies entirely on cultural consensus.
Got it. It's a code we all agreed to learn. Versus
Something like a fire alarm symbol, or the skull and crossbones we mentioned earlier. A skull actually resembles death. It's the physical remains of a human.
Right.
It's part of the biological reality of dying. So that symbol has a much closer visceral relationship to its meaning. It's not just a code, it's a reflection.
That makes sense. It's intuitive. You don't really need a textbook to tell you a skull is spooky.
Yeah.
But in literature, I feel like authors are rarely that direct. They don't just put a skull on the table and say, hey, reader, this means death.
No. That would be terrible writing. That's the difference between a sign and a literary symbol.
Okay.
A literary symbol is what the text calls an extended figure of speech.
Okay.
It rewards interpretation. It's not a math equation where x equals y. It's often ambiguous. You can't just say the white whale in Moby Dick stands for evil and be done with it.
Because for some people, the whale might stand for nature or God or the limit of human knowledge.
Or just a really big fish that bit a guy's leg off.
Yeah, that too.
Precisely. Or the futility of obsession. It can be all of those things at once. That ambiguity is a feature, not a bug. It allows the story to breathe and mean different things to different readers.
That's what makes it fun, right?
Okay.
It's not a treasure hunt where there's one shiny gold coin at the end, and if you find it, you win.
No.
It's more like an archaeological dig, where you find a shard of pottery and have to figure out what the whole vase looked like, and maybe everyone thinks the vase looks slightly different.
That is a great analogy. And while we're defining terms, we really should distinguish symbolism from allegory. This is a trap a lot of readers fall into.
Oh, right. The source mentions the Pilgrim's Progress. That's the classic example everyone brings up.
It is the ultimate example. In an allegory, there is usually a strict, rigid, one-to-one mapping. You have a character named Christian. Guess what he represents?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say a Christian.
Bingo! You have a character named Pliable. He is easily swayed. You have a place called the Celestial City, which is heaven. The meaning is fixed. It's usually moral or religious.
So it's you crack once.
Exactly. You crack it once, and then you just read the message.
It feels a bit didactic, doesn't it? Like the author's grabbing you by the shoulders and shaking you, saying, do you get it? Do you get the moral lesson?
It can be. Symbolism is subtler. It keeps shifting. A symbol can mean one thing on page 10 and something totally different on page 50 because the context has changed. It evolves with the characters.
Okay, so we have symbols versus metaphors and symbolism versus allegory. Let's zoom out one more step. The text mentions myth and archetypes.
Yeah, these are the heavy hitters. Myths are stories that deal with cosmic truths or communal origins, usually involving the supernatural. But within myths and stories in general, you find archetypes.
These are the universal ones, the stuff Carl Jung would talk about.
Yes, the collective unconscious. Fire, water, the garden, the trickster, the monster. These are symbols that show up across cultures and centuries, regardless of whether the authors ever spoke to each other.
And we're going to see some of these archetypes today, right?
Oh, definitely. Especially the idea of the quest and the monster.
So the big question before we hit the stories, why do authors do this? Why not just say, he was afraid of dying? Why write a whole story about a birthmark or a worm? Why make us work for it?
Because abstractions are hard to grasp. Love, death, evil, these are big, slippery, invisible concepts. You can't hold evil in your hand. But you can hold a poisoned apple. Symbols make the abstract concrete. They give us something to visualize. They ground the emotion in the physical world.
It anchors the feeling. It gives the reader something to hold on to.
Exactly. But, as we'll see in our first story, sometimes that desire to make the abstract concrete, to try and grab hold of a concept like perfection and treat it like a physical object, that can be incredibly dangerous.
That is the perfect transition to Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Birthmark.
Oh.
We are jumping back to the 19th century. And I have to say, reading this story, it is frustrating. It makes you want to reach through the page and shake the characters.
It is a difficult read emotionally. It triggers a lot of modern alarms about control, gaslighting, and body image.
Yep. So set the scene for us. We are in the late 1700s, theoretically, but written in the mid-1800s.
Right. It's a time of massive transition. The source text notes that this was a period when the discovery of electricity was happening. Chemistry was separating from alchemy. Science was starting to rival religion as the primary way to understand the universe.
It was a time of miracles, but scientific ones.
Exactly. People genuinely thought if we can harness lightning, maybe we can conquer death, maybe we can fix everything. There was this incredible optimism about human potential.
And in this setting, we meet Aylmer. He's a man of science, a natural philosopher, as they called him, and he marries Georgiana.
Who is described as incredibly breathtakingly beautiful.
She is perfect, except for one tiny detail. On her left cheek, she has a birthmark.
And this isn't just a random mole or a freckle. Hawthorne is very specific. It's a crimson stain, and it bears a resemblance to a human hand, a pygmy hand.
A tiny red hand on her cheek.
Yeah.
Now, here is where the interpretation starts immediately. Because the symbol isn't static, how do people react to this mark? Because it seems like everyone sees it differently.
That is the key. The symbol changes based on the observer. The source material tells us that Georgiana's former lovers, and presumably Georgiana herself initially, saw it as a charm. They called it a fairy sign manual.
A fairy sign manual. That sounds magical, like a stamp of approval from the fairy realm.
Exactly. It implied she was special. Some men said they would risk their lives just to kiss it. It was a distinguishing feature, something that made her unique. It was a mark of individuality.
But Aylmer,
Aylmer sees something completely different.
he hates it.
Hate might be too mild. He is obsessed with it. To him, it is the visible mark of earthly imperfection.
There's a line where he says, "You came so nearly perfect from the hand of nature that this slightest possible defect shocks me, shocks him."
And notice the escalation in his mind. He takes a physical trait red pigmentation on skin, capillaries, blood vessels, and he turns it into a massive metaphysical symbol.
The huge symbol.
He decides it symbolizes sin, sorrow, decay, and death.
That is a heavy load for a birthmark to carry. He's basically looking at a freckle and seeing the fall of man.
He is.
Yeah.
But that is the power of the symbol in Aylmer's mind. He believes that this mark connects her to the brute animals and to the dust. It reminds him that she is mortal. And Aylmer, being a man of high science, cannot abide mortality.
He wants to conquer it.
He wants to conquer it. He wants to have a perfect creation, a perfect wife.
It's interesting because he claims he loves her, but it feels like he loves the idea of her. He loves the potential for perfection, not the woman in front of him.
That is the central tragedy. He wants a platonic ideal. He wants a statue, not a wife. He wants to edit her like a manuscript.
So he convinces her to let him remove it. He wears her down. He stares at it until she becomes self-conscious. And this brings us to a character I found really interesting, the foil of the story, Aminadab.
Aminadab is fantastic. He is Aylmer's laboratory assistant, and Hawthorne paints him in stark, almost cartoonish contrast to Aylmer.
He does.
Aylmer is pale, slender, intellectual. He represents the spirit or the mind. Aminadab is described as short, bulky, with shaggy hair and a smoky aspect.
He sounds like he just crawled out of a volcano or a coal mine.
He represents the physical nature, the body, the earth. He is the brute force that makes Aylmer's experiments possible.
The grunt work.
He is the grunt work. And while Aylmer is mixing his potions and fretting about metaphysical perfection, Aminadab washes Georgiana and mutters one of the most important lines in the story.
If she were my wife, I'd never part with that birthmark.
Boom. There it is. Aminadab accepts the physical reality. He accepts the imperfection because he understands that it is part of being human. He sees the woman. Aylmer sees the flaw.
It's almost like Aminadab is the audience screaming at the screen in a horror movie. Don't go in there! Don't touch the bark!
He is the voice of grounding. He understands that you cannot separate the physical body from the person, but Aylmer is too far up in the clouds of his own intellect to hear it.
This leads to the nightmare sequence, which I think is really telling. Aylmer has a dream about the operation, right?
Yes. And dreams in literature are almost always where the subconscious truth comes out. In the dream, he tries to cut the birthmark out, but as he cuts deeper, the little hand moves. It retreats, it plunges down and grips Georgiana's heart.
That is subtle, Hawthorne. Real subtle.
It is blunt, but it tells us everything we need to know. The birthmark isn't just on the surface. It is connected to her life source. It is part of her heart.
But does Aylmer wake up and say, wow, maybe I shouldn't do this?
Yeah.
No. He ignores the warning.
He doubles down.
He treats her with these potions. He shows her his scientific marvels, flowers that bloom and die in a moment. He is playing God.
He's showing off his control over nature. Look, I can make a flower bloom. I can remove a freckle. He is drunk on his own capability.
And Georgiana?
Yeah.
She buys into it. She drinks the Kool-Aid. She tells him, essentially, make me perfect or kill me.
She internalizes his gaze. She starts seeing herself through his eyes. The mark becomes a horror to her because it is a horror to him. That's a whole other layer of tragedy, the loss of her own self-perception. She consents to the risk because she can't live with his disapproval.
So finally, he gives her the draft, the cure. And it works, technically.
The mark fades. Hawthorne writes that it fades like the stain of the rainbow fading out of the sky.
Which is a beautiful image. But rainbows fade because they disappear. They cease to exist.
Exactly. As the mark fades, so does she. She tells him, I am dying.
And then she dies. The moment she becomes perfect, in Aylmer's eyes, the moment the mark is gone, she is a corpse.
It's the ultimate irony. He succeeded in his experiment but failed in his life. He achieves a perfect object but loses his wife.
So what is the ultimate takeaway here regarding the symbol?
The birthmark was the bond between the soul and the body. It symbolized life because life is imperfect. You cannot have biological life without decay, without change, without flaws.
So by rejecting the symbol of imperfection,
He was actually rejecting the condition of life itself.
he wanted to fix the symbol, but he broke the reality.
Correct. He mistook the map for the territory. He thought if he erased the symbol of mortality, the mark, he could erase mortality itself. But the mark was her humanity.
It's a tragedy caused by bad interpretation. He read the symbol wrong. He thought it was a liability to sin, but it was actually her anchor to the world.
Precisely. And that theme of interpreting the symbol gets even more complicated and terrifying in our next story. We are jumping forward about 100 years to World War II.
To The Thing in the Forest by A.S. Byatt.
That's the one.
This story, man, the Hawthorne one is tragic, but this one is genuinely creepy. Feels like a fairy tale, but a really messed up one. Like Brothers Grimm if they were writing during the Blitz.
It definitely plays with the structure of a fairy tale. You have the classic setup. Children sent away from home, entering a dark forest.
So let's set the stage. We have two little girls, Penny and Primrose. They don't know each other. They meet on a train. They are evacuees being sent away from London to escape the bombings.
The atmosphere Byatt creates here is just heavy. The disorderly dwarf regiment of children, the blackout curtains, the anxiety of not knowing where they're going or who will take care of them.
They're just completely unmoored.
They are stripped of their parents, their homes, their security.
They end up at this mansion in the countryside. And the next day, they go into the woods.
And they take a third child with them, Elise.
With a yay, she says. She's the tag-along, a toddler. They don't want her there. She's too little. She slows them down. But she follows them anyway.
And then they see it, the thing.
The description of this thing is just, it's an assault on the senses. It's not a cool dragon. It's not a scary wolf.
No, it's described as having a triangular face with a miserable expression. Its body is like a monstrous turnip or a loathly worm.
A turnip. That's such a weird image. It's so mundane and gross at the same time.
It grounds it in something organic, something earthy, but rotten.
Oh, no.
It's ridiculous and horrifying at the same time.
And the smell. The text mentions a mix of bad eggs, blocked drains, and pure rot.
Yeah, you can almost smell it coming off the page.
And the sound. Crashing, squelching, gulping. It's a symbol of pure organic decay. It drags itself through the forest, destroying everything in its path.
And it doesn't even seem to notice the girls. It's just this mindless force of consumption.
And the girls hide. They freeze. But Alice doesn't hide.
Alice is too young to understand the danger, or perhaps she is just in the wrong place. The girls run away. They leave Alice behind. And Alice is never seen again.
They imply the thing ate her, but they never see it happen. They just leave. They run back to the safety of the house.
And that guilt, that secret, binds them together and tears them apart. The story jumps forward to 1984. Penny and Primrose are grown women now. They meet by chance at the mansion, which is now a museum.
And this is the part that gave me chills. They are walking through the museum, and they see a book, an old book called The Golden Key. And inside, there is a picture of the loathly worm.
This is the validation moment. They realize that what they saw wasn't just a shared hallucination, or at least they confirmed to each other that they both saw it. I saw it too, they say.
It anchors the supernatural in their shared reality.
It does, but look at how they coped with that trauma. This is where the symbolic analysis gets fascinating because they took two completely opposite paths.
Completely opposite.
Let's look at Penny. She became a developmental psychologist.
Right. She deals with the invisible. She studies autistic children. She is trying to analyze the mind. She's a scientist.
She is trying to understand the incomprehensible. She handles trauma by trying to dissect it, catalog it, explain it. She is the Aylmer of this story. She believes that if she can understand the mechanics of the mind, she can master the memory.
And in the end, what does she do? She goes back to the forest.
She needs empirical evidence. She wants to find the thing. She wants to see the bones. She wants proof. She thinks if she can look it in the face again, she can master it.
She wants to stare down the monster.
And Primrose.
Primrose became a storyteller. She works with kids. She tells fairy tales.
Exactly. She takes the horror and wraps it in narrative. She incorporates the monster into safe stories. She admits the thing is real, but she chooses to frame it through imagination rather than science.
She creates a buffer of fiction.
She does.
So let's talk about the symbol itself. What is the thing? Is it just a monster?
The source text leaves it deliberately ambiguous, which is part of its power. It's never fully explained.
It could be the war itself. Right. The destruction, the smell of death, the way it just rolls over everything without caring who gets hurt.
Absolutely. The loathly worm functions perfectly as a manifestation of the Blitz. It destroys the landscape, it eats children, it smells like death. It is the physical embodiment of the war trauma these girls experienced.
But it could also represent suppressed grief. The black veil that Penny mentions seeing over the world.
Yes, and Penny has this chilling line. She says, "I think there are things that are real, more real than we are."
That stops me in my tracks every time. What does that even mean?
I think it means that some experiences, some traumas, are so massive that they feel more solid than our own individual consciousness. The thing feels more permanent than they do.
Think about the contrast with the Hawthorne story. Aylmer created a symbol. He looked at a birthmark and decided it meant sin.
He projected meaning onto the world.
Right, but Penny and Primrose, they encounter something that is already there. The symbol intrudes on them. It's not an idea they had. It's a monster that walked into their lives.
It suggests that trauma is an external force that invades your reality. You don't choose it.
And their reaction to it determines their lives. Penny, the analyzer, is consumed by it. She goes back to the forest and, well, we don't hear from her again.
The implication is she disappears, just like Alice.
Or she is simply lost in her own quest for answers. She is swallowed by the need to know.
Meanwhile, Primrose, the storyteller, survives. She's at the mall telling stories to kids. She's okay.
It suggests that maybe the rational approach, trying to dissect the monster, trying to stare directly at the trauma, isn't always the way to survive.
Maybe not. Sometimes you have to mythologize it. You have to turn it into a story so you can put it in a box and live with it.
That's a powerful idea. That storytelling is a survival mechanism, not just entertainment.
It's how we process the unprocessable. If you look directly at the sun, you go blind. You have to look at it through a filter. Primrose built a filter. Penny took off her glasses and stared.
Heavy stuff.
No.
Okay, let's move to our final story. We are leaving the English countryside and going to Haiti. A Wall of Fire Rising by Edwidge Danicat.
This story is crushing, but in a very different way. It's grounded in a very specific socioeconomic reality.
We meet a family. Guy, his wife Lily, and their son, Little Guy. They're living in a shanty town.
And we need to understand the context.
For?
This is post-colonial Haiti. Poverty isn't just a condition here, it's an atmosphere. Guy is struggling to find work. He is hoping for a few hours of work cleaning latrines at the sugar mill.
That detail says it all. He is begging to clean toilets.
And the setting itself is symbolic. They are living in the shadow of the sugar mill. The sugar mill represents the economic history of Haiti slavery, colonialism, labor, the grind of poverty.
It's the machine that eats the people.
It really is.
Yeah.
But there are two major symbols that lift this story out of just being a sad drama about poverty. The first is the play Little Guy is cast in.
Yes. The boy is cast as Bookman.
We should explain who that is. Bookman was a real historical figure, right?
Yes, Duddy Bookman. He was an enslaved man, a Vodou Hongan, who helped spark the Haitian Revolution in 1791. He is a giant of history, a symbol of resistance and black liberation.
And this little kid, Little Guy, has to memorize this powerful speech. Let me read a bit of it. A wall of fire is rising, and in the ashes I see the bones of my people. There is no white light there.
It's such a stark contrast. You had this innocent little kid reciting these heavy, violent lines about revolution and death.
And his parents are watching him practice. They feel this immense pride, but also the weight of the words. When the boy shouts, "Freedom is on my mind," it resonates with Guy, the father, in a way the boy doesn't understand yet.
Because Guy feels trapped. He is watching the news on a caged public TV. He is begging for menial work. He hears his son screaming about freedom, about a wall of fire, and it wakes something up in him.
It highlights the gap between the ideal of Haitian history, the revolution, the freedom, and the reality of their current lives, which is grinding poverty.
The play is the symbol of what Haiti should be.
Or what it was in the moment of revolution. It's the promise.
Which brings us to this second and arguably central symbol, the hot air balloon.
The balloon belongs to the Assad family, the wealthy owners of the sugar mill.
To them, it's a toy, a hobby.
Hmm.
They take it up on Sunday afternoons for fun. They sip drinks and look at the view. It's a luxury.
But to Guy, it is a miracle. He is obsessed with it. He stares at it. He tells Lily, "I'd like to sail off somewhere, be something new."
Be something new. That line kills me. He doesn't just want to be rich. He doesn't just want a better job. He wants to be elsewhere. He wants to transcend his station.
The balloon represents ultimate freedom, agency, rising above the lists of workers, above the shantytown, above the heat and the dust.
It's a perspective shift.
It really is, looking down on the world instead of being crushed by it. It's celestial.
But notice the tension here. Lily is grounded. She tells him, people don't eat riches.
She is the realist. She is trying to keep the family fed. She loves him, but she is terrified of his dreaming because she knows dreaming is dangerous for people like them. Guy is looking at the sky. Lily's looking at the pot on the stove. She represents survival.
And this leads to the climax. Guy steals the balloon.
He does. The whole community watches. He cuts the rope. He gets it up in the air.
And for a moment you think, he did it. He escaped. He's flying. It feels triumphant. It feels like he finally touched the symbol he was worshiping.
But then he jumps. Or falls.
The text is ambiguous, isn't it? It says he climbed over the side.
It is. But the implication weighs heavily toward a deliberate act. He climbs over the basket. He looks down. He chooses his moment.
So, we have to ask, was the balloon a symbol of freedom or a vehicle for suicide?
I think it's both. And that is the tragedy. For Guy, true freedom, the kind where he could be something new, wasn't compatible with the reality of his life on the ground.
So the only way to truly escape the system was to leave existence entirely.
He couldn't be free and be Guy the latrine cleaner.
Exactly.
He achieved the ultimate freedom, which is death. He chose the sky over the earth.
And the ending creates this devastating link between the two symbols. The boy, little Guy, stands over his father's body. The crowd is screaming. And what does the boy do?
He recites the lines from the play.
A wall of fire is rising. In the ashes, I see the bones of my people.
It chills you to the bone. The bones of my people stops being a metaphor in a play. It becomes literal. His father is now one of those bones. The revolutionary history of Haiti and the personal tragedy of this family merge into one moment.
It's like the symbols collided. The balloon escape crashed into the play. Revolution, death.
And don't forget Lily's final reaction. Someone tries to close Guy's eyes, and Lily says, "No, leave them open. My husband, he likes to look at the sky."
Oh, wow.
She validates his desire. In death, she gives him what she couldn't give him in life. She acknowledges that his need for that view, for that symbol of the balloon, was a fundamental part of his soul.
She honors the dreamer, even though the dream killed him.
It's an act of incredible grace in the middle of all that horror.
Okay, we have unpacked three very different, very intense stories. We have a scientist killing his wife over a birthmark. We have a woman consumed by a trash monster in the woods. We have a father flying a balloon to his death. This is a lot to process. How do we synthesize this?
That is where the student essay by Charles Collins comes in handy. It offers a great framework for connecting these dots. Collins argues that the central conflict in all these stories is about interpretation.
Collins talked about the danger of symbolism.
Right. Yes. Theme 1. The danger of imposing meaning. This is the birthmark. Aylmer imposes a symbolic meaning on a physical object. The birthmark is just a birthmark. It's capillaries.
Right.
But because he makes it a symbol of sin, he destroys the reality. He destroys his wife. He sacrifices the real for the symbolic.
It's the danger of overinterpretation.
Exactly.
He read too much into it. He let the symbol overwrite the person.
Exactly. Then you have theme 2, confronting the real symbol. This is the thing in the forest. Here, the symbol isn't something the character made up. The thing is real. It intrudes.
And again, the scientific approach fails. Penny tries to analyze it, like Aylmer with his science, And it consumes her. Primrose mythologizes it, treats it like a story, and she survives.
That is a very astute observation. There is a recurring skepticism about the rational approach to symbols in all these texts. The people who try to dissect the symbol usually end up getting hurt.
Which brings us to theme 3, symbolism as a coping mechanism.
Right. This is Guy in A Wall of Fire Rising. He uses the balloon as a symbol of hope to survive the mental grind of poverty. He needs the symbol to breathe. But that symbol, like the birthmark, ultimately leads to death.
It seems like in all these stories, symbols are dangerous forces. They aren't just literary devices. They drive behavior. They shape memories. They determine who lives and who dies.
It raises the question of agency. Look at the victims, Georgiana, Elise, and maybe Penny, Guy. They are the ones who are either consumed by the symbol or sacrifice themselves to it.
And the survivors, Aminadab, Primrose, Lily.
They are the ones who accept reality as it is. Aminadab accepts the earthy body. Primrose accepts that the world has monsters and tells stories about them. Lily accepts her life and tries to feed her child.
So are we saying that dreaming is bad? That looking for deeper meaning gets you killed? That we should all just be Aminadabs?
I wouldn't go that far. Without the dreamers, there is no art, no revolution, no balloons. But I would say these stories suggest that there is a lethal tension between the ideal and the real.
Say more about that.
The symbol is the ideal. The perfect cheek, the categorized trauma, the absolute freedom. The real is the birthmark, the messy memory, the daily struggle for bread.
And the characters who can't reconcile the two, who try to force the real to become the ideal. They don't make it.
That is a sobering thought, but also a powerful one. It shows us why we read literature, to understand these tensions in a safe space before we encounter them in our own lives.
Well, this has been quite a journey. We started with traffic signs and ended up with the existential weight of human mortality.
Standard Tuesday for the deep dive.
Absolutely. So here is our final thought for you to chew on. In all 3 stories, the rational or scientific or controlling approach, Aylmer's alchemy, Penny's psychology, the economics of the sugar mill, often fails or destroys.
Right.
The irrational or emotional response, Primrose fairy tales, little guy's play, the acceptance of the birthmark, seems to be where survival lies.
It makes you wonder, are we too obsessed with dissecting the world? Maybe there is value in the myth, in the story, in the fairy sign manual.
So, look around your own life. What objects or events are you assigning symbolic meaning to? Is that job promotion a symbol of your worth? Is that car a symbol of your freedom?
And is that meaning helping you understand the world, or is it obscuring the reality right in front of you? Are you looking at a birthmark and seeing a sin when you should just be seeing a person you love?
That is the question. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us.
See you next time.